Welcome to Friday night's video in our second master series. I do believe this is the 52nd video in our second master series and the first video on dealing with processors and effects. This first segment we're going to deal with basic processors. Why I'm addressing these first is because in my last master series we went through them, but we didn't really address the processors themselves and really talked about them to make you, the quote-unquote next level master audio engineer of understanding what you're dealing with. And there are lots of variations of different processors. We are going to talk about the most basic ones, the ones I think you should be using as a next level master audio engineer, but there are others. It's like we'll talk about equalization, but there are times I use graphic equalizers for certain types of things, or semi-parametric equalizers, where most of the time I use a parametric EQ, so it's the one we're going to talk about because it's the one of most value that can do the most things that you can to help take you to that next level master audio engineering, so you're going to want to focus on using them well. Now, there's quite a few of them, but we will talk about the most basic ones. The first thing that I want to talk about of processors, we didn't talk about this about in analysis tools, but like this right here, I always keep something open here that tells me what's going on with my CPU and my RAM and my GPU and my disk space and things like that. This one is from AT Monitor. There's also one that runs on my activity monitor for my computer that I keep open also, but this one's just a small screen in case I see something jumping out of line that I might not catch on my DAW, so I highly recommend using that. Now, when we get into sitting here looking at, what are these processors that are going to be the most important for us to keep open, then let's take a look at this. Basically, for the most part, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the equalizer first of all. This is one of the most fundamental tools that are going to have the biggest impact on your production, as well as reverberations. I definitely recommend you focus on really utilizing your convolution reverbs. They are going to be a much better reverb for you to focus on using and using well, rather than use a bunch of other reverbs like, I have a room reverb and I've got a little mix reverb just as a couple examples, but I really focus on the convolution reverb because it is a much better choice to be working with as a professional audio engineer. Now, we'll also get into the next thing is going to be, those two are going to have the biggest impact on your production. The next thing that's going to have the biggest impact on your production is distortion, saturation, and noise application. So I recommend like Trash 2. I always make recommendations. It will do a good job to be getting harmonic content, to be getting saturations, to be getting noise and distortion and things like that to help you sculpt sounds to make them sound better, which is going to really help take you to the next level. And learning how to use noise files. There are some basic noise files like blue noise, brown noise, gray noise, pink noise, violet noise, white noise. I suggest you get a good copy of all those noise files because the transducer produces noise, saturation, distortion, harmonics to make the sound what it is, as well as frequency and volume modulations most of the time. So those are three of the biggest components that you have that make sound better or enhancing sound, besides frequency and volume modulations. Next thing after that, we'll talk about like amplifiers and amp sims. Amp sims can have a huge impact of where you've got a microphone, you run it through different amp sims, is going to have a different effect and a different sound. And you can get all kinds of impulse and frequent impulse responses to have different sounds, to where it sounds like, a different room, that, the impulse response is actually an amp sim, and you've convolved it with an impulse response of like a convolution reverb together to cause it to sound like it's recorded in a certain environment. that can have a huge impact on your production. Seeing how most people are working in a home studio or a smaller studio don't have $1 billion with the 50 different microphones and have 20,000 different rooms they can go to that, cost $10 million a piece, to have the option of recording in for certain situations or certain projects and things like that. That you getting familiar with these is going to be a huge step in you becoming that next level master audio engineer and helping you control your environment and putting your captures in the environment that you want them to be in. The next thing is something like this. This is Ambio from Sennheiser and lets you choose different types of microphones and things like that, different types of patterns. This is something that's in development, but it's something to keep an eye on because you can buy a decent microphone like Slate has come out with this thing that's, you buy this one microphone and it can be 20 different microphones. That's a huge step forward for production people. So that is another recommendation I have. I have not bought it yet, but if I had the money to, I would. I mean, in 2 seconds. So if anybody out there want to buy it for me, feel free. I will not turn it away. That is a great investment. I mean, it's a work in progress, but as far as I can tell, that it is definitely something that's worth looking into, that's going to have a huge impact on your abilities to becoming that next level master audio engineer. Then we get into things like delays. Basic analog delays, beat delays. Delays are huge in causing working with your stereo field. So they're going to have a huge impact on your production, and you want to be real familiar with them so that you can become that next level master audio engineer, because if you're on your way there, delays and things like that can be very important. The next thing we get into is things like upwards compression and upwards expansion. Those things are huge. Those are something we're going to be looking at. Also, just basic compressors. Basic compressors are a huge thing that are very simple products that you're going to want to get real familiar with and understand. Things like multi-band dynamics are another one directly related to them that we're going to look at those also. Then we get into things like gates. Gates have their place and they can do a lot for your production, and you getting really familiar with them so you can just pull them out at the drop of a hat, know where you can't use them well or where they're just problematic is going to have a huge impact on your production to help take you to that next level of being that next level master audio engineer. And limiters. Limiters are huge. Some people just don't understand what a huge tool this is that you can use at all phases of your production, whether or not you're leaving it on a track or on a group of tracks or you render it onto certain tracks, that it can have a huge impact. And one of my favorite tools is my maximizer. I love my maximizer. People look at this. These have come. I love my Ozone maximizer because I use it all the time, almost on all my tracks during my editing and when I do groups and things like that, because this very much helps me preserve dynamics the way I want to, and it helps me get as much sound out of each track as I can while preserving dynamics with a bunch of different choices of algorithms that do much more than just limiting and compressing. And it's a combination of these things that this tool is immensely valuable to a top level audio engineer. If you use it well, this thing, you'll love your maximizer. You'll just be like, oh bro, there's no way I would never live without my maximizer, because it just takes care of so many problems that I don't have to fuss with things through my production that help me just bam, 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 bam. And I got great volume. I got great dynamics, the amount of dynamics I want. It's doing a type of a compression algorithm and a limiting algorithm and preserving it in certain areas. And I can split tracks, split frequencies with my channel splitter and all kinds of things to do it in different areas to get my sound sculpted and compressed and limited the way I want and come out sounding awesome. So I really love this tool. If you couldn't tell, to me it's one of my go-to tools, like compressors and EQ at this point. So In our first segment of this processor series, we are looking at our basic processors and tools, our meat and potatoes things that are going to have the most impact on our production. These processors and these noise files are going to be those ones we are targeting to look at, so we have a quote unquote next level master audio engineer's understanding of these things, because these things, more than any other tools you have, are going to help take you to that next level as a master audio engineer. And you mastering them, experimenting with them, getting familiar with them, and gaining experience with them, and all the things that they can do and what they were designed to do, and things that they weren't designed to do that they can do, that can do all kinds of cool things for you to get you experimenting with your tools, and especially your meat and potatoes tools, is going to help take you to that next level, so you are that next level master audio engineer. So stay tuned. This is the introductory video into this next segment, and I will see you in the next video when we start talking about the first most important basic meat and potato processor we got, and that's our equalizer. Peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed this introduction, and I will see you in the next video.